Hello and welcome to another edition of the Comic Shop Show. I'm your host, Chris Brenneman, owner of Infinite Realities, comics, games, and more in Atlanta, Georgia. Today's guest, Paula Sevenbergen, has had by all accounts a fascinating career. She began her comics journey working in editorial, but not for a comic book publisher like Marvel or DC, but for Wizard magazine. Now, if you're late 30s or older, then you're no doubt being shot through a nostalgia wormhole right now. But for those of you who aren't card-carrying olds, Wizard magazine was the focal point of all things comics back in the 90s, early 2000s. Part news publication, part print frat house. It was there that Paula got her foot in the door. On top of her work in comics, Paula also penned an essay for the Washington Post back in 2017 titled, "I Didn't Want to Date Shorter Men, but then I realized I was wrong." It's a fun read, and not only does it showcase her wit, but it also has become something of a rallying point for guys who are, well, not tall, like me. Now, Paula and we talked about her time at Wizard, as well as Mad Magazine, her stint as a writer for the TV series Stargirl, and her new series, Flow, from Mad Cave Studios. Ladies and gentlemen, Paula Sevenbergen. Enjoy. I did want to tell you, the first, I guess, what would you say, first exposure to your work, I need to thank you for it, was your celebration piece of short men.
This is not the first time I've heard this, so I'm glad I did some sort of service there. Are you a shorter gentleman?
I am the same height as comic accurate Wolverine. So yes. That was how I always retorted to people. Well, actually, how did that come about? I've been curious about that. Was that something that you pitched, or were you reached out to?
That essay, I did reach out and pitch it. No one came to me for it. Actually, it started because at that time I was doing some copy editing for DC, and I would read some Wonder Woman, actually just comics in general, where Wonder Woman was not taller than the men, and I always felt she should be. And so
Absolutely.
I was kind of fueled by that a bit, and I also wrote a screenplay just for fun for myself called "I'm Dating an Amazon," and about a guy who was having some issues dating this extremely tall woman in that story. And I guess it was just a combo of those things. And the third inspiration, I have friends to this day. I have a friend she's tall and she will not date shorter men.
Mm-hmm.
And I was with a man significantly shorter than myself. And she recently, actually last week, told me I would be proud because she bumped it up to 5'8". She's 5'10".
Okay.
And she's allowing myself to date a man who's 5'8", and she wanted big props for that.
Look, baby steps.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So I reached out and pitched that, and they were good with it. They had never had that topic covered before.
Well, like I said, it was fascinating. It was passed around to me, multiple people. Hey, Chris, check this out. So, when did your involvement with DC begin? You said you were a copy editor.
Yeah, my comics career, I guess if you can call it that, kind of started at Wizard back in the early 2000s.
Wow, there's a name I haven't heard in a long time.
Yes. I at that point was a comics newbie. I was reading very independent stuff.
Okay.
Like we're talking Minimum Wage by Bob
Mm-hmm.
Fingerman and Box Office Poison, and like that was kind of my speed. And when I started working at Wizard, it was at first for a kids magazine that quickly folded, and then I was working on Toy Fair and Toy Wishes, and but I was being exposed to all the superhero stuff, and I was already a huge Wonder Woman fan since childhood.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd only dabbled in actual Wonder Woman stories, and so I was learning a lot. I was catching up on the superhero world to some extent, and yeah, but I met so many great people there in the industry. And then I, worked on other magazines, like quote unquote respectable adult magazines. And then because my now husband uh, was also working in the industry, we ended up moving to LA. And then I needed a job. So I was proofreading, copy editing for DC then. And then my magazine work took me to Mad magazine,
Right.
which I loved, my whole life. And so when Mad moved to LA, I begged, I kind of begged.
No
Um,
shame in that.
yeah, I was not ashamed whatsoever. And I laid out all my qualifications, and I even laid out my Mad fandom. I had proof of it. And so I got hired on there.
What was the culture like at Wizard? Because, I'm late 40s. That was very, I don't want to say formative, but it was everywhere in the 90s. What was that culture like? I know
Sure.
on the page
Yeah,
they
yeah.
presented it as a zany bullpen, kind of like Marvel 60s. What was that
Mhm.
like?
There was some of that there. I was not an insider in the bullpen. I was in an ancillary, like I was in a side office at a sister magazine. So I didn't get to participate in much of the main bullpen antics. But I did, I did a little bit because I would help sometimes edit Twisted Toy Fair Theater. I would either just kind of weigh in on, get to be one of the many people who kind of looked at the jokes and weighed in on stuff occasionally, or if nothing else, then just copy edit it,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of thing. Um, it was, it to this day was the weirdest, most unique place I've ever worked. And for instance, on April Fool's Day, walked into the Toy Fair office and it was completely covered. I mean, every inch in aluminum foil.
Oh my
It
gosh.
was completely silver. And I mean, even the tiniest action figure, on a shelf, and there were many, as you can imagine.
Sure.
Yeah, um, covered, just covered. And I remember they had an annual scavenger hunt, and so I was the only woman on our team. Actually, I think I would definitely was the only woman in editorial aside from Cheryl, the assistant, um, and then there were women upstairs
Mm-hmm.
in the sales and so on. But yeah, I was often the only woman in editorial stuff. And so, I remember, I think I kissed an underage boy uh, because of, because of something on the list. Like, I mean, it's kind of horrifying now when I think back on it. But yeah, it was so crazy. And when I started, also, I was a very tall, am a very
Mm-hmm.
tall woman, and I was told I was intimidating, uh, and so some of the guys wouldn't talk to me, and then some were just kind of funny. Some were so great. I mean, they were just so witty and fun to hang out with. But I quickly was thrown into the con world because my first week on the job, I think it was the first week on the job, I had to fly to Chicago for Wizard World and work
And you'd
the
never been
convention.
to a con before.
I had never been to a con before.
Wow.
This was the early 2000s. And so that in itself was just, insanity.
The culture
And
shock.
culture shock. But there was the culture shock of the con. I was still in culture shock of, like, I remember being at a dinner, again, just myself and all of these young men, and they were interviewing me about what I looked for in a guy, some of them. And
Appropriate workplace conversation.
there was plenty of inappropriate workplace stuff going. I won't even tell you some of it because I don't want to incriminate anyone,
No,
but
totally fair.
um, pizza was being eaten in the bathroom, supposedly in the men's room sometimes. Like more than once in the warehouse, I accidentally walked into the bathroom on people, and like I just
It was a different time.
It was a different time, but yeah, I have to say, in hindsight, it was pretty great. It was pretty unusual and fun.
I imagine that sets an unrealistic expectation of the workplace going forward.
Yes, well, I was a little older than some of the guys there, and
How old were you at this time? If you don't mind me asking.
I was in my late 20s when
Okay.
I started there. So, yes, I had already had a quote unquote real job, and a lot of the guys had not. They had just come from college.
Mhm.
So that was also an interesting contrast. There's lots of contrasts going on, but I'm grateful that I had that job, and it did take me from the Midwest to the East Coast too.
So were you getting into comics at this time in
Yes,
earnest?
I was being indoctrinated, I guess,
Mhm.
but like I said, I had read comics, they were just very indie, you know?
Right.
And I maintained that, I guess. I shouldn't act like, "Oh, then I became this big, Marvel fan." No, that would be a lie. I was still very much an indie. I preferred that stuff. Like, I was reading Daniel Klaus, and then I was reading, like, Craig Thompson and, that kind of stuff still
Right.
is what I was drawn to.
Well, you mentioned Box Office Boys, and that was one of the first, like, indie comics I got into, and I remember that just hooking me.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was just lovely. It was like it felt very adult, but very young and, nostalgic and
Mhm.
yeah,
Like,
it was great.
I feel like I remember it captured what it felt like to be in your early 20s.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah,
So
I loved it.
when did you start, making the transition from the copy editing, editorial to, actually writing the stories?
Well, I didn't really envision doing that. Um, I was always a writer, and I was always writing fiction on the side. I when I was a copy editor, my justification of not being an actual writer on the job, like a journalist or something like
Mhm.
that, I always tried to be an editor because I wanted to save my creative juices for my side projects. Um, and it worked actually. I did a lot of writing on the side. Unfortunately, a lot of it wasn't seen. I spent so many years writing a novel that has never seen the light of day.
Mhm.
No one wanted it. And I did write a lot of essays and things that were published, but um, the fiction, it just, I wasn't getting it seen. Then when I moved to LA, I did what a lot of people in LA do, and they write a screenplay. It was
Yeah.
like, well, it's a story. It ended up being that I'm dating an Amazon screenplay. And it was just fun to write. It was what I did on my summer Fridays. It was what I did, on my lunch hours. I've always just been a writer. And then I had no idea. I ended up loving that screenplay. And I thought, hey, this is really fun to do. And I showed it to someone at DC who then ended up they read it in the creative department, and then I had no idea that Jeff Johns would then, get his own show,
Yep.
his own TV show, which was Stargirl. And he asked me to be a writer on the
And it
show.
was based off of the script that you had written just for fun, just for
Just for
you.
fun, I had gotten read, not intending to be staffed on a TV show. That was another thing I just never dared to dream, that I would be a writer on a show. I just I was just a writer,
Mhm.
and I was hoping to be a published writer. I had been a published writer of many things, but not creative works. And so I felt a little guilty that I kind of just, entered a side door into this dream job, because Mad Magazine was a dream job for me, and being an editor there and occasionally writing pieces for the magazine too.
Mhm.
That was just beyond. And then to then have another dream job for a job I never dared to dream was just, it seemed too much. Like I didn't feel deserving
You
of it
felt
at
like you were
all.
cheating a little bit?
I felt like I was cheating for sure, even though I had been writing for many years. And so, yeah, I had such imposter syndrome. that first year on the show, and I mean, to the point where it was almost debilitating. Like, I was
I know
just
that
so.
feeling, yeah.
Do you?
Yeah, oh yeah,
It's
like you're here, but you don't deserve to be here. They're
yeah,
gonna find out that you don't deserve to be here. Maybe I
yes.
should quit before they find out, save myself the embarrassment.
Exactly. Yes, I had that so badly, and it turns out a lot of people in that industry have that feeling, but you're not supposed to wear it on your sleeve, which I was doing.
Oh, really?
I
Did people notice?
yeah, yeah, people did notice, and so I tried to, like, I tried to, like, shake it a bit,
Mhm.
but it was so hard. But this is all a long-winded way of saying I ended up being a TV writer and then writing comics. So it was almost like I only got a shot because I had been on this wonderful show that was based on a comic book series.
That's wild that
Even
you
though
did it
I
in
had worked
reverse.
before, even though I had worked in the industry,
Mhm.
already, and I knew people in that industry, and I had, that was also very helpful. But it was because I had written on this show that I got this shot.
Were you looking for the shot to write comics, or did they seek you out because they knew?
It was kind of both. I had written some small comics, so I can't pretend like, oh wait, me, what? A comic? Okay. No, I had given myself the opportunity by writing a couple of short comics and having them made myself. Like
Mhm.
I wrote a short comic and hired an artist to draw it. And then I was asked to participate in an anthology, so I wrote a short comic for that, and that was exciting because they were actually hiring an artist themselves to draw it, and I'd actually got paid a little bit of money, and that was an amazing feeling. So I had done those things prior to the
Mhm.
show and prior to writing any like comics that ended up in actual issues for sale on the newsstand.
Right. What comic were you tapped to write?
Well, I got to do some one shots after writing for the TV show. I then, and again, this is partly, who it. I got to write a Catwoman issue, as a fill-in, and I got to write a short Gotham City Sirens
Mhm.
story, and I got to write a Wonder Woman Black and Gold series, and Wonder Woman. I got to write a story for that. So some one shots and shorts um, for DC.
As a Wonder Woman person, that had to be exciting.
It was super exciting, but then once again, here comes the low confidence going. Wait a minute, one, you don't deserve to play with her. Like I mean, yeah, that was also a dare to dream kind of thing.
What is your tactic for dealing with the imposter syndrome? Like, what is your way of overcoming that and getting the work done?
Well, I thought drinking would help.
Turns
uh,
out, just
yeah,
kind
no,
of adds to the problem.
yeah, no, no, that's not good advice. Commiserating over a drink helps,
Mhm.
though. I would say, socializing, talking it out with other creative people. Commiserating does help, I think. Um, but yeah, it's a lot of just putting your head down and doing the work anyway, and owning your mistakes. I feel like a lot of times, especially if you have an editing background, you come at it and you're like, oh man, like you're second guessing every
Mhm.
move you make. And that's death for a creator to do that. So, you go through that and then you just get to a point through just experience and just willfulness where you're like, I'm just gonna possibly do something really awful here. It's just a very strong possibility, and I have to just be okay with that. I just have to keep going. And if I mess up, I'm sorry. I hopefully will learn from it and do better the next time. And it really just comes down to that. It's just accepting that you are a flawed person and that's okay. And I did, I got some flack for um, I think everyone gets flack, but, when you want to do well and then you put something out, and if anyone criticizes it, you're like, "I knew it," it's
Yeah,
that
you use that
justification,
as validation.
that validation of, "I knew it, I knew I wasn't gonna be good at this." It doesn't matter if there are other people who are saying, "I enjoyed this," you latch on to that negative, um, stuff. Um, but, you only get past that by doing it more often,
Mhm.
by creating more things. And, um, I can't say I'm immune to criticism because I'm not a sociopath, but, you have to just kinda be friends with it a little bit,
That
and
makes
I think
sense.
yeah, and just keep going.
Do you seek out, reactions online? Like, do you hit, like, Blue Sky, Instagram, Facebook to see what people are saying about your work?
I do not.
That's smart.
I accidentally saw some, not long ago because I was trying to help, I was working with my editor and, marketing in finding, like, a pull quote or something,
Mhm.
and I started to go on, and I saw, like, a couple good reviews, and I was like, "Ooh," and then I saw that, like, that one was like, "This wasn't for me," and "I couldn't take this," and I'm like, "Oh, I can't. I just can't let this in my head, or I will be doomed."
That's gotta be the hardest thing as a creator, not engaging the
Yeah,
criticisms.
yeah, yeah, because again, I am not immune to it, so, um, I think if you're strong enough, if you're not a wimp like me, I think you could learn from it sometimes, if it's constructive, it's probably great to read and, learn from it. Um, but, often it's so subjective. It's all about taste,
Right.
and there's nothing wrong with someone not liking it if it's not for them. Um, it's just when it's mean-spirited
Yeah.
or yeah, then that can be hurtful
Which
to
is
some.
easy to be mean online. There's
Oh, sure.
no consequence.
Yeah, absolutely. We all know that. Yeah.
When did you make the, decision to pursue creator-owned?
Well, actually, I was invited. I was invited to pitch, um, but I had some ideas. I still have a couple ideas from, long ago that I would love to make work, but they're not quite working out for me in my head or on paper when I, play with them. But but then one did work, and I just happened at that time to be invited to pitch, a series. And so it was this one. It was Flow. It was originally called The Curse, and
Mhm.
then there was a TV show that just came out called that. So
Right.
we switched the title, but then I felt good about the idea, and so then I threw it out there.
At the shop, our floor manager, Gwen, was the one that brought it over to me and was very much, "You need to read this today." And
Oh,
she was the first big champion at the shop for it.
thank you, Glenn.
Gwen's amazing. She's yeah. So Flow bothered me because I saw myself both in Dara, the getting picked on socially, but even more so in the character Mo,
Mm,
where sees it happening and does nothing for fear of that attention turning to her.
yeah.
I feel like most of us have been in that position, especially at that age, that middle school age.
Mhm.
It's very hard reading that character in particular for me.
Mm. Mm.
Is there any what are you drawing from this? I know that's a universal, but is there anything in your personal experience that you're drawing from?
Yes. I mean, I have been both of those characters. Um, I think a lot of people I mean, a lot of us have been picked on as kids at
Sure.
some point at some point, but I feel
Mhm.
like especially, introverted creative types who, are quiet and do a lot of watching and listening, um, sometimes that probably makes certain personalities uncomfortable, and
Mhm.
so they are trying to draw you out. At least I think that's what happened to me. That and also, uh, you know, just having a very physically awkward stage in 5th grade. It was like
Mhm.
the combo of being very quiet and I think easy to pick on and also being keep talking about how tall I am. You know, this gangly, awkward kid, like in
Yeah.
this awkward stage. I was just physically also an easy target. So I like that that never goes away, you know, when you experience that. It runs deep, the being bullied.
Mhm.
Um and then yes, and then I have also been in a quote unquote cool group, you know, later in life where or later as an older kid where you're so afraid of being that again, the picked on
Yeah.
one that you just kind of roll with it. You know, maybe even if you're not being malicious or you're not instigating anything, just just sitting by, you know, or kind of like just nodding or laughing or
Mhm.
whatever. Um yeah, I think a lot of us can relate to that and I have been that person too.
The time jumps where you have adult Mo dealing with that, like, that's relatable. I feel like all of us have that experience of, even though it was so long ago, for me, it was 6th grade. It was so long ago, but what if I had not laughed at this kid that was being what if I had been brave enough to put myself out there,
Mhm.
right? But I don't think that's the thing that a lot of us talk about. We talk about that time I was picked on, but a lot of us don't talk about the time that we were quietly complicit to it.
Yeah, and I feel like that's way more common,
Mhm, I
right?
feel like that's the common thing.
Yeah, yeah, and I think a lot of us quietly, uh, deal with that, you know? We either I think we either just spend the rest of our lives feeling bad about it, you know? Maybe it doesn't ruin your life, but, you know, you
Mhm,
remember doing that, or some people are probably in denial about it. They just kinda brush it away, but, um but yeah, I think you're right. I don't see a lot of people talking about it. Uh, for some reason, though, I'm flashing to the movie The Accused, which is such a different example. It's so much, so much more serious. But that poor guy in the letter jacket,
yeah.
who, yeah, yeah.
Is the story of Flow something that you've been percolating for a while?
You know, yes and no. I think the actual story hadn't been percolating for a while. Like I said, I do have some that have been and just aren't coming together for me, unfortunately. But that one hadn't been around long. But I think the feelings behind it have been percolating since, like we were just talking about,
Mhm,
since childhood. The feelings behind it have been there for so long. Um, but the story itself, it just kind of came together. I pitched it as a Carrie meets Yellow Jackets.
oh, that's a good yeah, that sums it up.
Ye Yeah, yeah, it does. So, Carrie, I was sharing this with someone else, how I saw it at a very inappropriate age. I think 8 and, saw it on HBO.
That's our generation saw everything at an inappropriately young age.
Inappropriate time. Yeah, yeah, and I had gotten my ears pierced that day too, so I had this, like, really violent feeling thing going on that day. It was so jarring, you know, and there was a little blood, and then that night, I saw this jarring movie with this blood, and I was like it was a very memorable day in my young childhood. So, that movie always, you know, has been a powerful one for me, and the book and the novel, which I read later. Um, and then, yeah, and I enjoyed Yellow Jackets, especially the first season when it came out. And so the dual timeline of that, um, I really loved. And then, so it was those things. And then I now live in a real house, which I had never done in my life. I had always lived in these big
Mhm.
city apartments, and I have a ravine in the back, which is terrifying to me because it's like all these trees I'm suddenly responsible for, like, not just a house, but this ravine, and it's when it's very when the leaves are, there, it's very guarded, like, I don't know what
Okay.
the hell is down there, right? And so it's all just a bit eerie to me. Sometimes deer walk out of it and just scare me when I'm sitting on the couch, and they're right outside the
Yeah.
window. Uh, there's a deer in flow for that reason too,
Oh, that's where
briefly
that's
in a
amazing.
scene. But also one day I just like out of the corner of my eye, like I thought I saw someone walk out of the ravine, and I
Mm-mm.
imagined it was this girl with blood on her hands.
Oh, wow. That
Yeah,
page from the comic, yeah.
yeah, and so that was inspiring as well.
And how's it been working with, was it Claudia Balboni?
Mhm. Yeah.
How did that team come about with you and her?
Um, the editor set it up. Mad Cave, matched me with her, and, she's in Italy, so I have never met her. I haven't even been able to do this with her,
Oh,
unfortunately,
no
but
kidding.
yeah, but we've exchanged messages privately before, and, yeah, she's been great, and it's just so exciting, to have it's such a joy and privilege to have someone with talent, make things come alive and add their touches and interpretations to what you have in your head. It's a learning experience for me because I can be a control freak sometimes, and
Mhm.
in the very beginning, I thought, wait a minute, this isn't how I pictured it, and then stopping and going, but it works. Or have another page come in where it's so much better than anything I could have envisioned, just that collaboration. It's been a it's been a learning process for me, but it's also just been so gratifying and exciting. And yeah, I've been really happy working with Claudia.
How do you let go?
Yeah, that's a big question. um again, it's like letting go of the imposter syndrome, letting
Mm,
go of control. It's all just through repetition and experience and learning. It's not easy for me. Um, but it's just learning that um, either it's going to be okay, or if it's not going to be okay, you'll get through it anyway, or you'll find another way. It's just learning that. Yeah.
my wife calls that embracing the suck.
Yeah. Yeah. She's she's right. That's an easy, quick way to remember it. Embracing the suck. Yeah, you have to.
One of the other elements of flow is the Mo's relationship with her professor and the power balance or imbalance rather.
Yes.
Um, what was the catalyst for including that element in the story?
Mm. Yeah, I've had a relationship like that in my adulthood where, and this is such a, I feel like this is such a complex topic,
Mhm.
especially post Me Too. There
Absolutely.
are, I think we've done a very good job of talking about relationships that are obviously inappropriate, right? Where, and I think we've learned more about the various types of relationships that are inappropriate. And and I do think the one Mo has with her professor is inappropriate, no doubt about it. However, when you're younger and sometimes if you get swept up in, certain feelings, you can justify things to
Mhm.
yourself. Um, I am choosing this. I am an adult. I am choosing this. Therefore, and I'm getting something out of this. Therefore, I think it's okay. I think this is okay. And it's only through, letting the relationship play out, or maybe in hindsight where you think, well, wait a minute, there's a power dynamic there that's not equal, even if we're both adults.
Right.
there's something going on there that makes this uneven, and it's very hard to have an equal relationship when there's some kind of power dynamic that's not equal.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It's interesting to see, especially post Me Too, seeing that handled in this specific way in the story. I don't feel like anything's being beaten over the head. You're not hitting me with a cudgel with it, but the
Yeah.
facts of the relationship that you're presenting speak
Mhm.
volumes.
Mm. Mhm.
So I guess what I'm saying is damn good writing with that one.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I hope that continues throughout this series that, because once in a while I don't want to make Dr. Rick, as she calls him,
Hmm.
overtly, jerky.
Right.
Yeah,
It's more
but
interesting in being complicated situation rather than
yeah,
black and white.
right. Yeah, and so thank you. I hope I maintain that.
So what kind of stories were you drawn to? Like just fiction in general?
Fiction in general, growing up
Yeah, just
or
what are the stories that spoke to you and contributed to you deciding to pursue this as a career path?
mm, yeah, I mean, I was writing and reading ever since I can remember, and, the first huge influence on me was Judy Blume. And, I guess appropriately, "Are
Right?
you there? It's me, Margaret." Yeah, it was just like and which it for those who don't know, is about a girl getting her first period also.
Mhm.
It just, that feeling of somebody talking about very intimate things that you're not getting elsewhere, you know, just that the intimacy of reading a book in the first place was exciting to me, but then especially if it's this edgy topic, right? And it
Mhm.
was being treated very respectfully and honestly. It wasn't just like edgy for edgy's sake. It
Right.
was it was a part of life that was just not being, discussed a lot. And so that was so thrilling to me. And so I loved her. And I was always looking for other authors like her. And then I read, I guess I read a lot of Stephen King too early, as we talked about.
As we did.
Yep, yeah, and other horror because of him. Um, but then I majored in English, and there were plenty of like classics that I love too. Um, gosh, I there wasn't a lot I didn't read,
You devoured
and then
everything, it sounds like.
yeah, yeah, and then living in New York, I was just going to tons of book signings and readings. And, I went to so many Zadie Smith signings that I think, I was worried she thought I was a stalker. But I went to like Doris Lessing signing and Margaret Atwood and like all these great people, S.E. Hinton, who wrote The Outsiders. I got to go to a book signing of hers. Um, there was an event that was like this superstar event, J.K. Rowling, Stephen King, and, John Irving, and
Wow.
I look and I'm like, "How the hell did I get into that?" Like, that was just this amazing thing. So, yeah, I was and am just all over the place with my reading.
Do you have a novel in you?
Oh, yes, I've already written 2.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, the aforementioned novel that I spent years on, no
Mhm.
one seen, it's
It's
sitting
there.
there. And then I just wrote one, actually, and I have been trying to shop it around. No luck so far yet. It's a thriller. That one's a thriller.
So, thriller seems like something that's definitely in your wheelhouse that you enjoy
Yeah.
working in.
Yes. Yeah. I like the thrills. I it's hard not to be pulled toward that. That said, I do love children's lit, and I always thought I had a children's novel, and I have tried writing that as well. The other one I didn't get published, I guess, is a little more YA, you would say.
Okay.
Yeah. So I feel like I have these extremes, and I'm not alone in this, yet somehow I make it seem like a bad thing that I have these, I love these books of childish wonder, where everything in the world is treated as like is beautiful and miraculous and um you know things to be cherished and just people coming together and finding community. And I'm a huge fan of Kate DiCamillo,
Okay.
who I love all of her stuff, and she's another one whose book signings and readings I went to quite often. But then there's this other side of me that just loves the blood and the darkness and the creepy men and and inappropriate relationships and and sex and violence and all this tawdry stuff, underworlds and stuff. So I feel like I'm often at these extremes.
It's a really cool place to be. And, going back to flow, you were mentioning earlier about things that you're not supposed to talk about. That's also an element of flow where Dara, her father, doesn't want her being educated on very basic bodily functions.
Right.
And you've incorporated that into an element of horror so flawlessly.
Mm.
So I can't wait to see what you do next.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I guess that's just great to hear because it feels like it gives me permission to keep, dabbling in those extremes.
Like I said, at our comic shop, flow has been very popular. It's something that it's an easy hand sell. Um, and we push creator owned anyway. So when we find something that we're passionate about, we get excited about it, and this has definitely been one of them. So thank you for making such an amazing comic book.
Wow. Thank you for saying that. Thank you for selling it. Thank you to Gwen.
And Gwen's amazing.
Yeah, I love hearing this so much.
Well, listen, I appreciate you taking time to talk to me today. This has been fantastic.
No, it really has for me too. Your questions are so great and sophisticated, and and I hope to come to your store someday. Stargirl filmed in Atlanta, and I sadly never got to go to the set for various reasons, COVID being one of them. But
COVID ruined everything.
oh God, yeah. But I love Atlanta, and I hope to go back again sometime soon. So I would love to come into the store.
Open invitation whenever you want to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chris.
Paula Sevenbergen, ladies and gentlemen. Her comic, Flow, from Mad Cave Studios is on sale monthly and is absolutely worth a read. And do yourself a favor, go track down that essay of hers from the Washington Post about how awesome short dudes are, because we are. Special shout out to our own Gwen Darby. Like we said, Gwen was the first champion of Flow here at Infinite Realities, and I'm so glad she put that issue in front of me. And a shout out to our own James Query as well. James does all our ordering, so whenever you see a new series on the shelf, odds are James is the one who took a chance on stocking it. Did you enjoy this episode? Of course you did! So if you haven't already subscribed via your favorite podcast provider, go ahead and do that. And if you want to learn more about our comic shop Infinite Realities here in the Atlanta area, then you can hit us up on Instagram. Our handle is @InfiniteRealities. You can check out our website, www.infiniterealitiescomics.com. Or better yet, you can just come over and see us. We're here 7 days a week, and we love to hang. And that's it for this week's episode of The Comic Shop Show. Hope you have a fantastic week, and we'll be back next Wednesday with another guest. So until then, I'm Chris Brenneman. Be safe out there.